Welcome to Let's Chat with the Auto Repair Boss. My name is Jim Parker. I specialize in selling auto repair businesses across the country. If you're thinking about selling your auto repair business in the next couple of years, this is a perfect show for you, the whole series, because what we cover is information so that you can put your business in the best possible position to sell your business, and not only do that, but maximize your sales price and get the best terms possible. If you are not thinking about selling your auto repair business in the next couple of years, it's still a great show because there's a lot of great information on here that is going to make your business run more efficiently, more effectively, and bring a lot less stress to you, and you enjoy your personal life a lot more. I'm really excited. For those of you guys that own tire shops, this is a great episode because I interviewed the other day Fernando Herrera with TireBase IO, and he has a CRM that's just for tire companies, specifically tire companies. We're going to touch a little bit about the software and the CRM that they offer, but what I really wanted to talk to Fernando about is that he interviews tire shop owners across the country, and he gets to pick he gets to interview them, and he gets to learn what makes a tire shop run effectively, efficiently, not run effectively, not efficiently. He's got a lot of great insight, and that's what we're covering today. As I'm just asking him a series of questions about what he has seen from his interviews that he's done. It's a great interview. He's a great guy, and so just sit back and enjoy. And if you like the content that you're seeing on this series, please subscribe to the channel. It would be good for me, and then for you, you're going to make sure that you don't miss any future episodes. And I'd appreciate it if you liked us, and if you comment, that'd be fantastic. You can even ask a question, or if you want to give us some information on what kind of things you want us to cover in the future, we will definitely take that to heart. Well, I appreciate it, and I hope you enjoy today's interview with Fernando. Fernando, thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you, Jim. Thank you. I appreciate the introduction, and thank you for such kind words.
Absolutely, buddy. So tell us a little bit about TireBase IO. Why don't we begin there?
Sure. So TireBase is a software. It's really a platform that helps businesses in the tire industry manage their business, whether that be inventory, websites, order management, customer, like CRM. But really, TireBase was made with the purpose because of my YouTube channel. Actually, believe it or not, a lot of people would reach out to me and they would ask me like, hey, what software can I use for my shop? Or, hey, like exactly what you just said, right? Like, what's the best practice for doing an inventory? Well, and suddenly I was like, how can I help all these people, but truly help them? And I was like, you know what, a POS with like embedded best practices in it would be probably like the best approach. And that's why I started TireBase with a co-founder that's technical, and now we're 2 years in and helping over 40 businesses now and growing.
That's fantastic. You know what I love about what you're doing is that you have a specific to tire shops, and I love that, Fernando. That's really cool that you have it specific just to that. So, what do you think the advantages of your software is over like other competitors?
Yeah, I think there's definitely good software out there, but I think they all lack an important characteristic, and that's usability. Um, it's not just me wanting to build a software. I come from my father's retail business. I started from, changing tires to becoming the store manager to doing alignments to becoming the controller once I graduated from my accounting degree. So I had the perspective of having like the perspective of what each role in the business might need. And so for me, it's very easy to, we're developing these solutions to just say, this passes, but it's not going to pass with the technician because they don't think that way. Or this passes, but it's not going to pass with the accounting guys. And so it's a lot. It facilitates for us the development of use. And when our customers use it, typically all departments like it because it kind of meets every checkbox. And traditionally speaking, other softwares don't have that. They were either developed by someone really smart in the accounting and the office, but their technicians won't like it, or vice versa. Someone who comes from hands-on approach but doesn't have that business acumen. So I think TireBase meets both.
That's great. Fernando, I'm gonna be honest with you. I'm just gonna be honest with you, and I hope you don't get offended. But the first time now we've had a couple conversations now, but the first time I came across you and I found you, I was like, wow, he looks so young, like so young. But as I started watching some of your videos that you do, and you do a fantastic job with your videos, by the way. But when I started watching your videos and then I started talking with you, I'm like really impressed, like super impressed. Like you are extremely knowledgeable, and it has to do with you grew up in the tire industry with your father's shop, right?
Yes, yes. Since I was, my dad wouldn't let me obviously change tires when I was like in first grade, second grade because of safety just in general. But he would let me go and open the shop and set the coffee and set the donuts for the customers and help, people write them up because we used to use pen and paper invoices back then. And so that kind of just built, and even days where I didn't want to go, sometimes we used to sell used tires and he would wake me up 4 a.m., 5 a.m. to go and help them. And back then I think about it, I don't think I helped them much unload like containers, but just I think the work ethic of him pushing me and saying, "Hey, sometimes you don't want to go to work, but you have to," and I think that just builds you up.
Yeah, and can you talk? You said you own a tire shop right now. Can you talk a little bit about that before we get into your interviews you've had with tire shop owners?
Yeah, so we do still have family tire businesses. I'm not really involved in them at this time because of TireBase. But I was involved, for most of my life, but we still have them open. So my dad's currently managing them with his team. We have 4 retail shops and three in Vegas, one in Texas, and then one wholesale in Vegas as well, like a warehouse in Vegas.
Okay, great. And for you guys that are watching out there, I really encourage you before you go any further at all, on the lower thirds or underneath Fernando's name, you're going to see a link to his website and a link to his YouTube channel. And I really encourage you to go to his website, but also go to his YouTube channel. It's just fascinating. You do a fantastic job. So yeah, let's talk a little bit about your YouTube channel and what interviewing people, when you interview them, for your YouTube, what do you consistently hear that separates successful shops from those that tend to struggle?
Hmm. So when I interview people, I typically have a reason for me wanting to interview them. It's not just me randomly picking individuals. They typically have like something I'm generally curious, and I on purpose don't meet with them beforehand to make the podcast feel a little more genuine because these are questions that I'm for the first time bringing up to them. But people tend to enjoy that. But from the shops that I've interviewed. We've interviewed a couple of shop owners and a guy who also used to work for a lot of shop owners. But I would say what differentiates a lot of these shops is that they're action oriented. There's a lot of people out there that have a lot of dreams and maybe the motivation and the drive, but they just never get to it, or they're too afraid to go after it. And so I would say that's the number one characteristic I've seen is the difference between those who are actually successful in the field and those who don't or who are wanting to get in it are those that simply just go at it and say, hey, you know what? Let's just start. Like if you want to start buying containers of tires, like, okay, what do we need? 50,000. Okay, let's go ahead and do it. Like let's just get to work and get to it. But then there's the over analyzers, and analyzing is good, but again, that would be my answer. I think just people get stuck in analysis sometimes, and that sometimes prevents them from actually executing.
Yeah, you talk about the analysis. Sometimes people get caught up on that. I've sold businesses in the past where the buyers coming from the corporate world, and they're very, very, very successful in the corporate world, and most of them do take over like an auto shop or something else. They do a great job, but I've also seen a couple of times where the person acquires the business and they overanalyze everything because they are coming from the corporate world. And in the corporate world, that's what you do is you analyze everything before you make a decision. And I think there's a big difference between being an entrepreneur with one shop or five shops and you're making more gut decisions every day. And I think that, when you're small like that, you have to go off your gut more. You do have to analyze things. You do have to look at things. But like you said, you can overanalyze as well, and I think that the advantage the entrepreneur has or the person that owns a small amount of shops is that they, they can move quicker. They're more nimble and they're going more off the gut feeling. And so I agree with you on that.
Yeah. It makes me think. It, I think the team is also important. You know, you mentioning something you said kind of made me flash back to that. Having the right team, especially if you're going to be like, let's say, the corporate owner that you just mentioned, right? A lot of times, you know, some of these people that want to get into the industry, they don't want to necessarily go and operate the shop on a day-to-day basis. But the team's going to be really important. Having the right process, you know, is very important. But yeah, I think that's really what differentiates the successful versus not successful shops.
Mhm. And so the employees too. Yeah, I think employees are key component of the entire situation. Um, so like, is there any specific story or lesson that you learned from interviewing people that you kind of feel like is really interesting? That was kind of like, oh, that's strange, or that's
I
neat.
mean, yeah, I think it's one thing I found very interesting is that they all have a different story, but somewhat similar. I put myself in a way, right? I find myself to be someone who's unique and in my story, right? What I just mentioned, growing up in the industry and going with dad and go to work and being in this and that. But then when I start talking to a lot of these owners, they had a similar path where they would be involved with parents or in the family business, and then somehow this is how they got into where they are. And so that I always find interesting. I've also found that the industry is, although big, it's also relatively small. There's been multiple times where we'll talk about specific people and we're like, suddenly we all know each other from either a vendor, a supplier, or, you know, just mutual connections. And again, it kind of amazes me how big yet small the industry is, at least the tire industry.
Yeah, no, I agree with you. I agree with you on that note. That's interesting. Is there anything that you found surprising that you learned from interviewing people?
Um, I mean, I'm interviewing people again. There's different concepts. One that comes to mind was a guy in Texas who I interviewed. I went to first time I heard was he was remolding used tires, converting used tires into new tires again. And so I'm in the industry and I know that there's re-threading of tires for commercial vehicles, but never I've heard remolding, right? And so when I went and checked him out, yeah, that's all they did. They would polish out the tire and then they would just put a brand new rubber casing and they put it on the oven and a new tire comes out. So I thought, you know, that was a pretty unique idea and interesting business model. But then again, there's every guest has its own, you know, uh, like uniqueness. Like there's another kid who's like 23 and sold probably over 20 containers in a year from selling nothing, right? And just from willpower and hard work. And so those are the times where you just like, again, it's like interesting. Everybody has their interesting story.
Yeah, I had to tell you, you were talking about you're leaning up to it again, but you were talking about it before about people's stories. And when I'm talking to business owners that are they're talking about selling their business, I always find their story so interesting. And that's one of the things I love about my job is just their story. And whether they've owned it for 10 years or 40 years or however long, and their journey of going, why they started it, how they started it, their struggles they had early on, and how they overcame those struggles. I find that interesting. One thing I think that the people listening to this that own tire shops, maybe they own one tire shop location and that's it, and they dream of owning other locations as well. What are you seeing from the interviews when you're interviewing somebody that owns one shop and somebody owns multiple locations? What are the differences between those two as far as what the owner's job role is and what their mentality is and their perspective is? Or can you give any insight from that
Yeah, it's
regard?
actually great. Good question. So if there's a company out there that has 100 stores, there shouldn't be a reason why you can't have 100 stores. So I'd like to start with that, right? Meaning if someone out there has the ability to have 100, 200, 300 stores, no matter the size, there's nothing that's preventing you from accomplishing that same thing. Now, with that in mind, now that we're like hopefully motivated and excited to go after it, it's very important to understand that sometimes bigger is not better.
Right.
Um, I've seen a lot of businesses who are extremely successful with their one shop, making very good money. They open their second one, their third one, and they end up actually close to losing everything, or just now having three mediocre stores because you just divided your current client customer base into three stores or more. Not on top of that, now you have to deal with multi-location issues, right? Like, now someone calls up to work, you might have that problem times three. Now, if now you have three rents to cover. Now you have this and that. And so again, it's extremely. I would personally recommend that if you're wanting to go into the multi-store strategy, which again, it's completely fine, you have a very good strategy as to why you want to do that. If your goal is to just make more money, you might be able to make more money in your current store, and you don't have to go through that headache. If your goal is to have just 100 chains because that's your personal challenge, then okay, that's fair. But you might need some maybe private equity, or you might need some external capital to help you, with that growth.
Yeah, you know what, Fernando, I agree, and I think as well. Like, you own that one location. If your one location has a lot of issues and there's problems, and you're kind of going in there every day and you're reinventing the wheel every day, and you're kind of going, I don't know, just going rough every day, and you're banging your head every day. Now you open up your second location, it's going to make it worse. The third location is going to make it worse, and it's not going to just double or triple it. It's going to exponentially make everything work worse. And you really, if you have one location, and you want to expand, you really got to have really good systems and processes in place, and that shop be running very, very smoothly. And the whole idea of having multiple locations is, once you have that one location that's running smoothly, you're not running around with your head cut off. The business doesn't require all your time. You are not, the main person that makes the whole, operation work in that one location. You have the systems down and everything's running smoothly. And then you're duplicating what you created there to another location. So, if I guess my advice to somebody listening, that if they wanted to open up a second or third or fourth location, make sure the location you have right now is, there's always problems. So there's always things that are going to pop up, and it's business, you're always going to have headaches, but you really got to have that first location down pretty good and have the systems in place.
Yeah, no, I agree.
So what do you see from the shops that tend to struggle a little bit more? What are some of the mistakes that you see they make? Most common
So
mistakes, I should say.
again, I think the most common mistake would be the uh, team and process. I think it goes to that. Process can encompass any aspect of the company, but more, I would say the most overlooked process is, just the fundamentals. It's amazing how many people don't understand this, but customers out there, they don't want rocket scientists. They don't want anything special. They just want someone who could come in and get a service or a tire for a affordable price that they feel it's good, and that they're just taken care of. Like, they don't want you to rub their back and massage them and do anything. They just want someone who I can take my car, my wife's car. I get there, price is good, service was fast, everything was good. No, they didn't damage my car further, and that's it, and head out. Because the last thing they want, consumers at the end of the day, is another headache for having to return back. And so a lot of times shops don't cover those basic fundamentals of, basic, uh, like, again, I would just say it's training, like, training their employees as to how to actually talk to customers, what to offer, what to explain the situation, let them know, a lot of these owners, sometimes they just open up and then they just kind of wing it, which is fine. But, yeah, I would say that's one of the probably issues. Now, can you remind me, Jim, what was the root question? Because I think I went on a rabbit hole here.
Gosh, I don't know. I think it was what common mistakes do you see the businesses that struggle the most have? But I think you were
Yeah,
going right down the right path, because I'm agreeing with everything you say.
yeah. So okay, so what are the businesses like biggest struggles based on my experience, right? Like, the
Yeah.
not very successful businesses. I would say, yeah, just team. Finding this is team again. It's very, very, very important. I've seen companies that they've had employees steal from them, where they go
Yeah.
like, oh, well, we caught him doing a side, deal, but it's okay because he's like our manager and we really need him and we just don't know what we're gonna do. It's like unbelievable, but that's absolutely like a no. Like you have to really be firm. You have to. I actually did a podcast with a guy. His name's Tony. He's from Irvine, in California, and a really good recruiter. Like he recruits really well, but he had a policy like that where he would say, if I see that my technician or my service writer is recommending something that we don't need and the customer reports that, that guy's gone. Like we don't want people like that in our business. And so I think, again, it's very important that you have people you could trust, people that, that just are agile again, you don't want someone like, uh, no offense to all like DMV employees, but like at the DMV, right? Like everybody knows you go to the DMV and there's no incentive for them to be efficient and hurry. And so you don't want to have that in your.
Right. And I tell you, like every few years, I talk to a business owner that did have an employee steal a lot of money, and it's almost like this. I hear the same story all the time, Fernando. It's like, oh my gosh, they worked with me for so many years, and I trusted them so much. And I know you were saying trust, but I just kind of want to, because this is what I hear. I trusted them so much, da 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 da, and it's always the employees that you think you trust a ton that are doing it. And it typically starts off with, they take $50 and they mean to put it back the next day. And then they realize, oh, well, nobody missed it. Nobody noticed that it was gone. Obviously these are businesses that don't have good systems in place, and so they take a little bit more and nobody noticed it. And then they get more and more brave about it. And then what ends up happening too is they start to justify their reason for taking it, like, oh, I'm not getting paid enough, or I'm such a big contributor to the business, and they justify it in their own head, and they end up stealing lots of money. I've seen businesses in my career where I saw one business, it was over like $150,000 over a 5-year period of time that was stolen from the business owner, and it was discovered, it wasn't discovered
Late.
until late. Yeah,
Yeah.
it's
No,
really
and I,
sad.
I think you're right on, and that's where I go back to the fundamentals again of business, and that's checks and balances. Again, from an accounting perspective, as the accountants in the university, it's like we're always trained to prevent opportunity. Like, if there's an opportunity for someone to steal, you want to remove that. You want to avoid that because what you don't know, even though you trust them, you don't know when someone might be hit with a difficult situation that they might need, and they might need money. And if the opportunity is there, you want to remove it. And then you're right. Once the opportunity is there and they start maybe small, then it transforms into rationalizing it, like what you're saying, exactly what you're saying. Like people start saying, well, you know what, I haven't asked for a raise, so this kind of compensates for that. Or, well, you know what,
Yeah.
I'm the most productive employee. They trust me. I do so much here. This justifies it. But again, if there were proper checks and balances, I think it removes that, altogether. For those who don't know what a good proper check and balance would be, it's like, again, if your guy closing the end of day is the same guy who's doing the invoices throughout the day, there's a potential for theft there, right? Or because again, we've seen so many now with the POS, we've actually encountered some of these things where people will do work orders. Let's say they're about to sell $1,200 worth of service, then they pay cash. They just print out a work order, give it to the customer. The customer doesn't care if it's a work order or an invoice. It says $1,200. At the end of the day, the employee just changed it to $600. Now that employee just pocketed $600, and then the work order is back. And so again, having some balances would prevent things like that, right? Like having someone which again, it's tough, but there's still some curveballs there that are tough to check, but it's easy, honestly, to a simple ChatGPT or Google could tell you good, proper checks and balances based on your situation.
Yeah, absolutely. You made a comment too, and I don't want to, I want to go back, but I'm going to go back. You made a comment about just winging it when you're talking about training, and that's what you see shops that are doing not performing as well. They're kind of winging it. They're winging the training, things like that. And I think you really have to, as a business owner, you have to stand back and take the time to create, like for your front counter person, you stand back, you create the training materials to train them properly so they know what to say, how to handle everything, do everything, and actually not just tell them, but to get it down in writing, and actually go through more of a formal training process. And if you do that, then when that person leaves and you have to hire somebody else, or as you grow, or it's easier to train people because it is written down. A lot of times business owners are like, oh, I'm too busy to do that. I'm too busy to do that. And sometimes you take a step back. It takes you longer to do it, but it's going to save you a lot of time down the road and a lot of headaches down the road. And I don't want to stick on the systems, for too long, but, Fernando, I heard this story years ago. I don't know if this is a true story or not, Fernando. I have no idea, but I love the premise of the story. And it's like 45 seconds for me to tell you this story. And this is how my practice, in selling businesses, I base my whole practice on this story. And I think it's a good story for a business owner. So supposedly in the 1970s, there was a Japanese company that made mufflers, and they made the best mufflers on the market. And an American company bought their muffler and did reverse engineering. They took the muffler apart to see why the muffler was so much better than their muffler and other mufflers on the market. And when they took it apart and they were looking at it all, the whole thing, they were like, oh, it's about, everything. It's all about the same. There's not anything different about it. And they couldn't figure out why it was so much better. But when they started looking at it more in depth, they realized that everything, down to the nuts and screws and nuts and bolts and the washers, everything was just a little bit better than the competitor. But when you put the whole thing together, it was exponentially better. And I think you can apply that. And again, I don't know if that's a true story or not, but it's always stuck in my head. But the point is that it's you can do the same thing in businesses. Create your systems, make your systems as best as you possibly can. Always kind of refine them. And, that's what is going to, I think is going to make a successful shop and make it run better, give the owner less headaches in operating the business, and, make more money at the end of the day. So.
No, I like the story actually.
Do you? I
good.
love that story.
Yeah,
I love that story. I live
yeah.
I live my practice that way. I always talk to my employees about that. We talk about it all. They're so sick about hearing about it. Fernando, I think one of the big issues that tire shops, struggle with, or a lot of them do, is labor issues. And, have you talked to anybody that's kind of figured out how to recruit good people and, not, it's a thing that a lot of business owners are struggling with, is finding good quality employees nowadays.
Yeah.
Or have you not talked to anybody that's figured that out yet?
No, yeah. That's why actually the guy I was previously mentioning, Tony, that's one of the reasons why I wanted to interview him, even though he's more on auto repair, not really tires. But his energy towards hiring people really captivated me. And so I agree. That's one of my top questions sometimes from business owners asking me, well, we all know it's a team, but how do I actually find a team? Like, it's impossible.
Yeah.
And I don't think that's the case. After that podcast, I kind of realized it's really about putting the work in it. Tony, for example, I'll give you an example very briefly. He shared how when Sears was shutting down their auto centers, everybody was going over there to get the promotions and whatever, because when they're closing out their clearance and everything, right? Free tires or whatever, And Tony was like, oh, well, the employees. I'm going to go after the employees because I know that the employees are going to be out of job and
That's
I want
smart.
the best one. And so he went and he was like, who was like the top guy here? And who was like and he went and he got him. But he's saying that that's how he recruits. He doesn't wait for someone to just get in the door. He actively is going out for them. And so he gave me another story. One time he was eating with his family in like an Olive Garden or something like that. And he notices a group of technicians because he mainly recruits master techs. So he was saying like, and I saw a group of technicians walk in and head out to like the bar section. And so I told my family and my wife, even his wife was like, oh, here you go again, right? And he was like, yeah, just 5 minutes. So he went out there and he was like, hey guys, I bought you guys this appetizer. So he bought them an appetizer. He told them, that he works with technicians as well. So he didn't just approach them and pitch them. He was like opening up to them, telling them like he works with them and that he thanks them for all the work that they do and that where do they work. And he found out they were from like a Toyota dealership. And so he kind of, and then at the end, he was like, okay, well, here's my card, guys. If you're ever looking for like an opportunity or a job, feel free to call me. Like I can guarantee you that I'm going to take better care than, Toyota will ever do. And so he says that he actively has a whole bunch of people waiting for a job. Like just has a folder where people are just waiting and they keep telling him, hey, I want to. And so he has, when he needs that or he has an opening, now he has the ability to choose from the best talent he's recruited from, the last 12 months or whatever. And compared to, typical shop, the technician's gone. Now the open spot is there. Now you're losing money on the shop. And now you quickly have to hurry up and get the first guy that walks in the interview to just put him there. And then only to find out 2-3 months later that he's no good. And so I think it's that. I think that I would say that's maybe the crack of the code. And once you do hire people, you have to retain them. Because a lot of people, again, same thing. I learned that from him. But he was saying how he actively sits down with everyone and he says, hey, Jim, do you have a house? Do you have a college tuition for your kids? Do you have like, what's your goal? What's your drive? What do you want to do? Do you want to open your shop? And so he actively works because he prides himself in saying, that's my job. My job's to get Jim wherever he needs to be, right? And then you just take care of the clients. That's your job. But let me help you with that. And so that's allowed him to get some good talent and retain it. So hopefully those were good tips.
I think that those are great tips. Sounds like he does a great job. And I really buy into that whole, concept of really, taking care of your employees, making them happy. It's when you own a shop or, a few shops, it's about building that camaraderie, and we always say it all the time, but it's like, family, blah, blah, blah. But, you compensate your employees well, you give them a lot of respect. You become friends with them to a certain level. Obviously, you can't do it too much, and you show that you care. Because I think what most employees want in life are three things, and not necessarily in this order. Is they want to be compensated well, they want to have the respect, and they want to enjoy their job. And if you're providing that to your employees, and your employees enjoy working for you, and they're getting paid better than they would at most other, tire shops, then when, you are needing people, the word gets out, like the word gets out, oh, this shop, they really take care of their people and it's easier to, I think, to recruit people that way as well.
Yep. No, I agree.
Fernando, I love that story about the Sears. I think that was a very clever thing that business owner did was, hey, that Sears locations is closing down, going in there, finding out who the best employees were. That's what I love about entrepreneurs is that the way they think. I had a guy several years ago that he said that when he first started his business, he would go to he was in a smaller town and he would go to all the newspaper. I don't even know if they still have them. I haven't seen them in a while, but the newspaper things where you put a quarter in or 50 cents in and you open it up and you grab a newspaper. What he would do, obviously this is highly illegal, but and they're not around anymore, but what he would do is he would put the 50 cents in, open it up, take out all the newspapers, and he would stick a flyer in all the newspapers, and then he'd put them back in, and he would go to all the things around town like that. And I'm like, oh my gosh, like you're getting free ads and, or 50 cents each time, ads in USA Today.
Beautiful.
I'm like, oh my God.
That's actually very smart.
I'm not recommending anybody do that. Obviously, that's illegal. But when he told me that story, I was like, oh my God. Like, I love how entrepreneurs think sometimes, thinking outside the box. So let's talk about inventory a little bit, because inventory, inventory management in a tire shop is pretty intensive compared to other auto repair businesses, so if you found a good way that, or a unique way people are handling their inventory management.
Inventory remains to be the number one headache for shops currently at this time. Even for bigger shops, you'd be amazed we have had or have met shops that sell millions of dollars a year, and they have millions of dollars worth of inventory, and their inventory is like 40% accurate. And we're talking about 40%. That's huge. Like, I guess it's not good. So, that doesn't mean
No.
that it's not what I'm trying to get to though with this is not because you're big means that you have, or those big companies have their inventory all figured out. However, there are some best practices when it comes to inventory. I learned this again from one of our managers back when I was in my father's business, and he came from a background working with Lowe's, like Home Depot and Lowe's, and would tell me like, how Lowe's keeps track of every single screw, and he was like, they do cycle counts. And I was like, at that time, I was like fresh. I was like, what the heck is cycle counts? I don't know what that is. And he's like, well, instead of counting, because, we had a lot of tires, we had probably like 6,000 tires. The inventory was extremely difficult for us to do, like in a one shot, hey, we're going to do inventory,
Mhm.
close the shop, whatever. And so he told us like, hey, instead of doing an inventory all at once, how about we do just cycle counts, meaning sections of the inventory every day. So instead of counting thousands of tires, we're only counting maybe 100 tires. But that way we count, we go and adjust, and then we review. And so, but I actually did a video, I don't remember, but on my YouTube video, how to actually prepare for that. And so the first thing is you want to organize your inventory, whether that's going to be by brand or by size. And once you have it organized, now you start doing your cycle count. So you'll say, let's say we organized our warehouse by sizes, right? All the 13-inch, the 14-inch, the 15-inch, and so on and so forth. Well, today we're going to count all the 13-inch. And so you're going to go and grab a piece of paper at first, or, if you have an inventory sheet from your system, you can do that. And you count, and then you find the variances and you say, okay, well, then the second thing is, because so many people get caught up on the investigation. Once you count, then they go like, oh my God, I'm missing 10 tires. And they look and they never adjust. And so now, 2 weeks pass and the inventory system is still like displaying the wrong inventory amount. So what I normally would recommend is you organize, you count, and you adjust immediately, because it doesn't matter if they stole them or not. That's what you have right now. And your team is
Yep.
displaying or working based on what they're seeing. So you have to adjust ACE, like the same day you count, you adjust. And then you give it to the auditor or the guy or the manager, whoever. Hey, we're missing these 10 tires. Find out what happened. And so it doesn't necessarily mean that they get stolen. Oftentimes it's actually a mistake. It's an error. The employee accidentally received the wrong products and put it under a different SKU. And now they're displayed in the system as 20s instead of 13, or they sold the wrong product, same thing. So, those things, once someone checks, then they can do the necessary adjustments, and then it fixes up your inventory. But that's how I would, inventory again remains to be one of the biggest issues for shops still to today. And that's what we hope to solve with TireBase.
Yeah, I that's one of the biggest challenges when we're going to sell tire shops. I specialize in selling auto repair businesses, obviously, but I'm selling tire shops. The inventory can be, it can be challenging. That's why I think whether if you're selling a tire shop, you need to work with somebody like me or somebody like me, because that can be. I know you're talking from owning a business, but from selling it, it's challenging as well. How often are you seeing the more successful, maybe you know this or don't, how often are you seeing the more successful businesses are doing inventory counts? Because it's that balance. So if you want to do it enough that you have things under control, you're making sure that products are not going missing, they're not being stolen out the back door. Because you think about stealing, it's not just the cash, it could be tires going out the back door. And it's also, making sure you have the proper inventory in there. So when you're looking on the computer, you're like, oh, and then you go back there and it's not there. And, but at the same time, it can be kind of labor intensive. So you kind of have to have that balance. So what are you seeing with successful shops? How often they're doing it? Do you know, or?
Yeah, so obviously a company I do look up to, at least how they operate from the outside, from what we could see as Discount Tire, even though, uh, everybody could say whatever they want to say, but Discount Tire, in my eyes, seems to be doing everything right. They always seem to have good customer service. They got the right inventory. They got the right procedures, everything. So, I don't know how they actually manage that aspect. Uh, but if I were to, guess, and again, this is just my opinion based on what I know, is you should be doing an inventory count. And again, not a full inventory count, but a cycle count at least every day. Even if it's 20 tires that you're counting, it doesn't take, there's always low time, or like slow time where the technicians maybe are maybe chilling back, or, there's maybe not enough work, or the store manager has a bit of time. It doesn't take much time to get that list, do 20 tires and just count them and hand it over to the admin team. And then again, when you least realize, you'll have a full inventory count in 2 weeks. And if you're able to get at least an inventory count once a month, I think that's healthy enough. I think that's very healthy. And at least, you do want to do a massive overhaul inventory at least once a year. But again, I would do it through cycle counts. I would just say, hey, this is part of our process, right? Part of the process is we do our work, and before the day end, someone in our team or someone has to go out there and count whatever, 50 pieces or 50 SKUs of tires, need to be accounted for. And again, even if you think about it, just the perception of employees knowing that there's active inventory counts already reduces that opportunity of potential theft, right? Because they know, like, well, I know they're counting. I don't know what they're counting, but I know they're counting. So I don't know. I don't want to lose my job. But on the other hand, if they know, like, oh yeah, dude, they count every year, and from what we know is they're losing hundreds of tires, so 1 or 4 won't make a difference. So
Yeah.
about
And
perception.
sometimes it's not even once. Sometimes it's not even once a year, unfortunately. And their inventory is way off from what they think it is. And there's tires that are unsellable, and we can't include them in the sale of the business because of that. Yeah, I think I've seen about everything. I want to talk about another hot button. Marketing and advertising. If you talk to any tire shop owners that have found really effective ways of bringing new customers into the door.
Yeah, I think that's I'm gonna say it's kind of split. You have the old school approach, and then you have we could call it the new school approach. But I mean, marketing is definitely tricky. I think that's one of the, not the most important issue, but one of the pain points, one of the headaches for shop owners. Once they open the shop, they're like, okay, well, I need more customers. How do I actually get them here? Um, from my point of view, I still think the most successful shops out there, the most effective way of advertising is still through social media, Facebook, Instagram. And again, this is just from my experience. There may be other businesses out there that have done, I've seen some other companies that do very well on Google pay-per-click. That's a different approach. But again, I recently actually just met this guy who was telling me he was just putting Instagram ads of his shop, saying, hey, I sell tires and come visit me. And then he would just target the local region, and, something like 100, $200 would give him thousands of dollars in sales, and so it's like,
Wow.
yeah,
Good
from a
return.
from a return standpoint, I mean, I think it's incredible, right? Sometimes I have seen some other shops. I personally actually was victim to one of these where you'll pay the grocery receipts, on the back, and I think I spent like $12,000 once for that, and we got absolutely no leads, like zero sales. I even told that guy, like, dude, you like this is bogus, man. Like, you just pocketed me like 12 grand. And they got offended and everything, but it's, you live, you learn. So now it's like, um, I'm going to incline more towards Google, Instagram, and Facebook, paid ads. And again, organic, postings such as Craigslist, OfferUp, Facebook Marketplace. Those places tend to do very well. As a more established business, obviously, if you're going to be growing to a larger business, I do think you do need to eventually hire like a marketing agency or someone who can do those tasks, but more in a strategic way. Another way that in Vegas, that this used to work for us a lot too, was mass texting your customers. That's one of the benefits we try to tell people when they're going from pen and paper is like, well, how many customers have you served in the last year? Oh, well, thousands. Okay, how many of them do you still have their number and their name at least? Oh, well, zero. Dude, you're missing out. Like right now, you could be sending a text, and it's amazing how when you said 2,000, I can attest for it. When we used to send thousands of messages, literally like 10 seconds later, my phone was nonstop. Like, hey, you have this tire size. Hey, my grandma needs tires. Hey, my sister needs tires. And it was like amazing because it was like free. And well, maybe it cost us like $5 just to send the campaign, but it was like a massive amount of just of traffic that comes in. And so, yeah, those are, I would say,
That,
are my favorite.
Fernando, that what you just said is like golden because it is amazing to me that people don't have good databases of their customers. Tire shop owners, auto general repair. I mean, anything in the space that I work in. Once in a while, I'll talk to them, and they're to a business owner, and they're like, "Yeah, I just don't have. I don't keep all that, or I've only got the last 6 months or whatever." And I'm like, it's the cheapest way to retarget that. They've already been there. You don't have to convince them. You just got to remind them, and it's the cheapest way of doing it. And the thing is that when they go to sell their business, it's not only the marketing the cheapest way to kind of bring business into the door. It's and most efficient and effective. It's also when you go to sell your business, that's what buyers want. The buyers are going to ask, how big is your database? What do you have for the database? Do you have their physical address? Do you have their email address? Do you have their phone number? Like, what's all included in that? That database is a large part of what you're selling. I mean, you're selling your equipment and you got your labor force that they're going to inherit, and maybe the building they might be buying if you own the building, or maybe you're leasing it or whatever it is. But the number one thing out of everything is the goodwill of the business itself, which is obviously the name of the business and your social media and all that stuff. But you strip away everything, that database, that's what buyers really, really want to focus on. So I'm glad you mentioned that. What about loyalty? Like, it's the tire industry's, it's not like you're going once a month to get tires. The customer's not going once a month to get tires. Like, have you seen any really effective ways tire shops are using to, keep that customer loyalty?
I would say, other than software, I mean, software is fairly self-explanatory, sending once in a while, texting, reminding them of their service. Those are things that contribute to customer loyalty. But in my experience, I think customer loyalty comes from a good experience. So, like I said, going back to the fundamentals and the basics of business 101. Yeah, the problem is my wife's tire just was flat and I gotta deal with that problem now. And I want to go to a place that's not gonna rip me off and it's fast and it's good and has a waiting room. Hopefully, again, there's different buyers. Obviously, there's low tier tire shop that, they serve used tires and there's money in everywhere. I've seen all of it. But again, it just depends on what type of shop you are. And I'm talking, most likely a concern of loyalty is not going to be for the smaller shops. It's typically going to be for a more established shop who wants to have processes, who wants to have their inventory. And I think that's who we're talking about in this case. For those shops, to build loyalty, again, is just stick to the basics and the fundamentals and make sure that your customer has, even if you don't want them to have an extraordinary experience, just a good experience. Just settle with good. It's okay. Because as long as you don't mess it up, they'll come back. Because trust me, it's like for us, like for me, barber, I don't want to change my barber every time I go.
Yeah.
What if they cut
Yeah.
my hair wrong? But if I got a good barber that just cuts my hair and it's good price and I like it and he wasn't taking like 2 hours to cut my hair, I'll be back because I don't want to deal with finding, someone worse. And so I think that's what the shops need to focus on. Hey, every customer that we get here, just let's take care of them. Let's do our job right. Let's not get them
Get them
mad.
in, get them out.
And
Yep.
then trust me, they'll tell their friends because then they'll say, hey, you know what? I went the other day and I have this place and they were pretty good. I mean, that's what you want.
I got to tell you, Fernando, I'm disappointed in our chat today because we're running out of time, and I have so many more questions that I want to ask you because you've been fantastic. I love your insight, and I feel like we've just kind of hit the tip of the iceberg. Will you be on again for us?
Yeah, no, for sure. Anytime.
All right, excellent. I'm going to hold you to that. I'm going to hold you to that. Before we leave, is there any last piece of advice that you could give somebody? Or anything, any last thought you want to say?
No. Just again, if you're thinking of uh, selling your business or starting getting into the business, do your due diligence. Ask the why. What are you gonna do afterwards? Make sure you have all your T's crossed. And if you ever have questions or problems, yeah, there's YouTube with lots of professional and people willing to help. it's amazing. I didn't know this until recent, but it's amazing how sometimes we as entrepreneurs or business owners, we want to do everything by ourselves. And you don't realize, you don't know how many people want to help you. They don't help you because you simply don't ask for help. But if you were actually to just say, it's okay to say, you know what, I don't know how to do this. I actually don't know. I'm lost. I'm kind of lost to how to do this. You would be amazed how many people, uh, would step up and try to help. So, I would just leave it at that. Never stop the curiosity or learning. And thank you again, Jim, for everything. And don't forget, I have to put the shameless plug, man. But if you're watching this, consider at least TireBase. I'm still very involved with every onboarding. It's my full-time job at this time. And but yeah, thank you.
Now, that's some great advice you had, Fernando. And I just want to say, I just want to add to what you said there at the end because, because I help people sell, tire shops and auto general repair shops, I see a lot of financials of businesses because I'm doing valuations on the businesses. And I can tell you that I have seen the businesses that tend to do the best are the businesses where the owner has listened to advisors, listened to a consultants, talked to other shop owners, and they've picked ideas from people. And the people that tend to struggle are like, hey, I'm the business owner. Because I think as a business owner, you're a business owner, I'm a business owner. The audience here is a business owner, or the audience wants to be a business owner. I think when you're a business owner, you tend to have confidence in yourself. You have confidence in your skills and knowledge and what you know. And that's why you go into business for yourself. But then I think on the flip side of that, there's a lot of business owners that think, I know it all, or, and they're not able to delegate and they're unable to listen to other people's advice, and they do okay. But I think the business owners that get to that next level, they have listened to other peers in their industry. They've listened to consultants. They've watched like your videos, they've worked with, your program, that kind of thing. And I think that plays a long part. But anyways, I can't keep you any longer. Fernando, thank you so much for coming on. I am going to hold you to coming back. And, I really, his YouTube video is down there below. And I do encourage you that if you're listening to this video, go visit TireBase.io. It's a really cool system. Go to their website, TireBase.io. Check them out. Give Fernando a call and learn about it. I think your business will improve a lot by talking to him and working with him and his team on doing that. And again, if you like this content, please smash that subscribe button, like, comment on the video if you can. I'd appreciate it. It's going to help you out because you get to watch everything. And, I really appreciate you watching today, and I hope you have a fantastic day. And until next time, take care.
Thank you. Take care.